Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Organ Donation India Foundation, and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today's topic is not only current, but very, very relevant and very hot. The topic is price rise, the way forward. But before I will go to the main topic, I would like to inform you that today world is celebrating Infant Protection Day. Infant Protection Day is celebrated on 7th November every year. The day aims to celebrate the day to spread awareness about the safety of infants and protect their lives by taking proper care of infants. It should be made aware that due to the lack of proper protection and proper care, newborns face a lots of problems. In India, the infants' mortality rate is higher as compared to other countries due to the lack of health care. The government has announced an effective measures to prevent infant mortality by implementing it. Due to the lack of basic health services, lack of awareness, and the increasing burden of the population, there has not been an expected reduction in infant mortality. Infants are tomorrow's citizen, and it is necessary to protect them as they are the future of the world. Media conference with Lal Goel wished that no infant should lose the life due to lack of awareness. Today is also National Cancer Awareness Day. To highlight the significance of increased awareness about cancer prevention and early detection among the general public, the National Cancer Awareness Day in India is observed on November 7th. The government had initiated the National Cancer Control Program in 1975 with a view to provide cancer treatment facilities in the country. And in 1984-85 was given the thrust on prevention and early detection of the disease. The day coincides with the birth anniversary of eminent French Polish scientist Madame Curie. Madame Curie is known for her discovery of radium and polonium and her huge contribution to the fight against cancer. Her groundbreaking work led to the development of nuclear energy and radiotherapy for the treatment of cancer. In India, nearly 1.1 million new cases are being reported annually. 2/3 of cancer cases are diagnosed at an advanced stage, reducing patients' chances of survival. It is estimated that one woman dies of cervical cancer every 8 minutes in India. Tobacco, smoked and smokeless use accounted for 317,928 deaths in men and women in 2018. Media conference with Lal Goel hope that this day will create more and more cancer awareness so that many lives can be saved. Today is also the birth anniversary of Dr. C.V. Raman. Today we are also celebrating the birth anniversary of Sir Chandrasekhara Venkat Raman, popularly known as Dr. C.V. Raman. Dr. Raman was born on 7th November 1888. He was an Indian physicist who made groundbreaking works in the field of light scattering. He discovered that when light traverses a transparent material, some of the deflected light change wavelength and amplitude. This phenomenon was a new type of scattering of light and was subsequently known as the Raman effect. Dr. Raman was the 1930 Nobel Prize, won the 1930 Nobel Prize in Physics and was the first Asian person to receive a Nobel Prize in any branch of science. Now, coming to the main topic, that is the price rise, the way forward. In economics, inflation refers to a general progressive increase in prices of goods and services in an economy. When the general price levels rises, each unit of currency buys fewer goods and services. Consequently, inflation corresponds to a reduction in the purchasing power of money. The opposite of inflation is deflation, a sustained decrease in the general price level of goods and services. The common measures of inflation is the inflation rate, the annualized percentage change in a general price index. Rising inflation is tricky in many ways. When food and fuel prices rises beyond a particular threshold, it creates a public outcry and puts government on the back foot. Inflation in commodity prices like steel and cement hurts industries that use them as inputs, but the manufacturers of those commodities gain. In the current context, farmers who might have benefited from the high food prices are instead in trouble because of soaring input costs. Worry that inflation may surge past its targeted ceiling of 6%, the RBI, Reserve Bank of India, has decided not to cut interest rates, which has consequences for overall economic growth. Over the past month, natural gas and crude oil prices have shot through the roof, railing about. More importantly, this is coinciding with supply side shortages. Last year, during lockdowns, natural gas, coal, and oil storages cannot get replenished to the usual extent due to movement restrictions. As such, during winter, storages were uh, due, uh, uh, drawn down as these natural resources were used to heat homes. At the same time, while truck drivers were considered essential employees and allowed to work, the training schools for these truck drivers were shut down. As a result, today we have an acute shortage of trained truck drivers who can transport these natural resources in large container trucks, which in turn is leading to storages not getting replenished as quickly this year too. Going into the 2021 winter season, storages across Europe, particularly the UK and parts of Asia, are running at below average levels. At the same time, the drought in South America has led to greater demand for traditional resources like coal and gas to generate electricity, which means that South America, Europe, and Asia are basically competing for the same LNG trucks that are already in short supply. As a result, we are seeing widespread supply chain linkages breaking down. In some instances, trucks waiting 24 to 48 hours just to get the coal or LNG shipment to carry it forward. Various countries in Asia like China, the largest exporter of coal, and India have warned of late about dwindling reserves. This supply-demand imbalance alongside increased demand expectation given the impending winter has led to a surge in prices. We can distill down the future of oil and gas prices to essentially three factors. First, severity of the winter season, current storage level and 70 to 75% utilization ratios would likely be adequate for an average winter, but a hard European winter would keep prices elevated. Second, the fresh supply from OPEC plus or the US seems low for probability right now. Given its recent meeting, OPEC plus only agreed to increase production moderately. Similarly, while the US has not increased production, it has been pressurizing OPEC plus to ramp up production to control rising oil prices. Third, fresh supply from Russia, while Gazprom could supply to Europe that can provide relief, their Nord Stream 2 pipelines approval has been pending for quite some time, and Russia is trying to use this crisis to get that approval over the line. The surge in oil and gas prices has both direct and indirect effects. Oil prices have a more direct impact on inflation as they constitute 9.5% in the Harmonized Index of Consumer Prices, HICP, with petrol, diesel, and heating oil making up 4.1% of the aggregate HICP, followed by electricity 2.9% and natural gas 1.9%. Apart from that, as prices rise, it erodes purchasing power of people, leading to consumers spending less on discretionary purchases. Similarly, it erodes margins of companies that are then not able to offer higher wages to workers, in turn reducing workers' purchasing power. As such, these changes are stagflationary on the margin, even though a less likely scenario in our opinion. This is certainly not a localized dynamic, but global and has widespread implications. India's economy is heavily dependent on oil and coal. The coal crisis seemed to be under some control on account of regulation of coal supplies to non-power sectors and allowing the participation of captive miners by Coal India Limited. Since India imports 85% of its fuel requirements, the implication on the economy can be significant. Diesel is touching rupees 100 at fuel stations, the cost of which directly impact the cost of household items. Given that we are in the festive season, the high cost of daily consumption products can make people cut corners when shopping. This will likely impact consumer segment sales. Consumers might also be hit by high electricity bills, especially the ones living in apartments that have power backups running on diesel. It is not just the urban population, but high fuel prices will also increase the irrigation and transportation cost for farmers. Clearly, these developments are inflationary. While no one can expect them to stifle the recovery, it is important to watch if these end up being more sticky than transient in nature. The government on Wednesday finally bit the bullet on runaway fuel prices and slashed excise duties on petrol and diesel by rupees 5 and rupees 10 per liter, respectively, citing the need to help farmers for Rabi crop, ease inflation, and give the economy a consumption boost. Following the center's excise duty cuts, most BJP-ruled states followed suit by cutting their fuel taxes obstinately with an eye on bringing fuel rates below 100 a liter. The Reserve Bank of India has been mooching fuel tax cuts since February this year in a bid to cool down persistently high inflation, and Finance Minister Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman had defended the high taxation, saying there is no assurance that the states would cut duties if the center did so, and called for a coordinate approach. On Wednesday, the Finance Minister said the reduction in excise duty on petrol and diesel on the eve of Diwali would boost consumption and keep the inflation low, helping the poor and middle class, says. The government last month slashed import duty on edible oils to provide relief to consumers from the surge in global price of the commodity. Rationalizing import duty is a part of government's key strategy to check edible oil prices. Now, to discuss this very important topic, price rise, the way forward, because what is happening today, the price is increasing, although now government has taken steps, they have reduced or cut the import duty on the edible oil, and now they have reduced the excise duty by 5 and 10 rupees on petrol and diesel respectively to control the price rise. But whether this is sufficient or not, or there are other ways to get this price rise to be controlled. So to discuss this very important topic today, we have a very elite, knowledgeable, those who have full authority and those who are very learned, and those who knows about the price rise or about the inflation. Panelists are with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he's Dr. M. Narendra. Dr. M. Narendra is the former chairman and managing director of Indian Overseas Bank. Dr. M. Narendra started his banking career when he joined Corporation Bank as a trainee officer in January 1975. In Corporation Bank, his hard work and dedication earned him the recognition of being a member of Chairman's Club for 8 years in a row and 18 more years. He joined Bank of India as executive director in November 2008. While he was with Bank of India, the bank won many awards. Dr. M. Narendra joined Indian Overseas Bank as the chairman and bank director on 1st November 2010 and retired on superannuation on 31st July 2014. Some of the prominent awards he won for Indian Overseas Bank are National Award for Excellence in MSE Lending for the year 2010-11, National Award for Excellence in MSE Lending for 2011-12, National Award for Outstanding Performance in Implementation of PMEGP in South Zone for 2011-12, the Sunday Standard Best Bankers Award 2013, IBA Banking Technology Award 2012-13, Best Use of Business Intelligence, National Award for Effective Implementation of PMEGP in South Zone for 2012-13. During his tenure, Indian Overseas Bank stood number 1 in sale of LIC products of Life Insurance Corporation of India for 3 consecutive years. He is currently associated as director with Mahindra Rural Housing Finance Limited, Mahindra First Choice Wheels Limited, Adani Enterprises Limited, Viswat Chemicals Limited, Kesar Enterprises Limited, Vanprastha Ashram, as well as Man Industries India Limited. Welcome, Dr. M. Narendra on our show. Dr. Narendra, you being a financial wizard, you being a banker, you know the economics very well, and you know what are the reasons for the inflation or the price rise in India. And you might be also having lots of suggestions or the way forward how the price rise can be controlled, because now the conditions are going out. And we have seen in the recent by-polls election, I am talking only of the Himachal Pradesh, because all others are having different factors. But Himachal Pradesh, where the farmers' agitation is not a factor, and where the government, existing government is of BJP, and where the chief minister was also changed recently, everything. But still, the people's mind, people have voted out all, and they have given the all the clean sweep to the Congress, because of the reason which has come as per the survey is because of price rise. And now that's why the central government is also very serious, and they also wants to control the price rise. And the media report says that's why the petrol cut and the diesel cut is due to the results of the by-polls. It has nothing to do with the Diwali, because if it were been Diwali, it would have been given at least 1 week before. Otherwise, on the eve of Diwali, if you are cutting the price, and so what is the use of getting the price cut? So we would like to know from you your views on price rise, the way forward. Dr. M. Narendra, please.
Yeah, good morning. And also I take this opportunity to wish everybody happy and prosperous New Year. And I must compliment Dr. Lal Goel with consistently on each day inviting eminent people and discussing on relevant subjects. And today, the subject also, he has given a very beautiful account, and he has covered quite a lot of areas in that, even the global price rise as well as the domestic India's price rise hike also. So now, Goel Saab, that you are aware, during the COVID period, the Reserve Bank of India took up the step of having a liquidity infusion of 12 lakh crores. Out of the around 28 lakh crores of the government Atmanirbhar Bharat package, the majority is 12 lakhs crore by the Reserve Bank of India. Now, during that period, that has helped in corporates, particularly in the last 2 years, they raised around 10 lakh crores from the bond market and partly equity. And they have de-leveraged their balance sheet. And they have also, in fact, paid back some of the loans. And they also took external commercial borrowing in place of the existing domestic liability. And thereby, they have brought down the interest rate on their what you call performance very low, and they have also rationalized the other costs like staff cost and all. So, but this heavy liquidity on an average, actually, it was even more than 8 lakh crores, and the banks could not immediately find opportunity to deploy these funds. And parallelly, Reserve Bank has reduced the interest rate by 115 basis points. And the repo rate is now 4%, and the reverse repo is 3.35. So all the commercial paper, all the money market instruments, all the rates came down. And that has helped in the government, particularly central government and state government. They raised more than 20 lakh crores of funds. And that money, their average cost has not gone beyond 5.9%. So their entire cost of borrowing has come down. And in spite of course, the government had to have a fiscal deficit of more than 9.8%. But in the current year, the government has been able to manage their fiscal deficit very well. And in fact, they have not even more than 35% only. And their direct taxes and indirect taxes, because of the substantial recovery in the what you call economy, their collections have been substantial. And they, of course, 12 lakh crores they are likely to borrow this year, and their likely fiscal deficit is 6.8. So from the Reserve Bank of India continuously, in spite of your point that the last 2 years, the inflation was averaging more than 6%. And their target of inflation is 4%. And they never have been able to reach to the 4%. And in fact, because the leverage given 200 basis upper or 200 basis that they utilized, and they maintained that in spite of the inflation, it is necessary that we should ensure liquidity and interest rates should be brought down. Of course, thereby there were a negative interest rate as per the savers are concerned. And in fact, senior citizens and all, they were getting a negative interest rate. Now that situation is likely to be now reversed in a way, as you are clearly mentioned, this year also their estimation of inflation is around 5.7 or 5.9%. And only in the last year, next year, they may project around 5.6%, which is again above the 4%. Now, this is I am talking about CPI inflation. So there are core inflation. There is a wholesale price index also is more than 10 to 11%. So overall, the inflation level or inflation expectation, and on the Reserve Bank survey also they are finding that is still high. Now, all along the talk is whether the RBI will continue to be accommodative in their monetary stance, or are they will start taking out the excess liquidity, which they have already started. That by the what you call reverse repo as well as variable rate of repo, they have indicated that they will take around 4.5 5 lakh crores, and the daily surplus will be brought down to 2 to 3 lakh crores by the December end. So the reversal has been doing, even in the case with the USA or other external countries, the fear is as like USA inflation also is more than 4.5%. Even in Europe, everywhere the inflation target is 2%, but their inflation has already started. That is what you mentioned, that immediately of the lockdown have been lifted, the people are all started coming out, making their what you call travel plan, their spending pattern. But there is definitely a difficulty as compared to general public or the average people who are below the poverty line, or people who have been affected due to the COVID in losing the job, or their salaries have been cut by 50%. Only the upper rich or the higher income group, they can afford to have a good Deepavali also in terms of the recovery. And as you rightly said, the Deepavali, it is expected that the Indian economy or Indian recovery has also been substantial, and it is having definitely, I think, very good recovery, and the projected GDP is more than 9.5%. Of course, it is on the negative GDP of the last year where we had a 7.5% negative growth. So as you rightly said, the oil price, because restricted production globally, it has moved from what was the rate, maybe $27 per barrel, that went to around 54 US dollar per barrel, and later now it is 84 US dollar per barrel. And even the US, as you rightly said, it is 81 again per barrel. So now it is expected that this year the average would be more than 75 US dollar per barrel, and that may go up to even 110 US dollar per barrel. Now, so the peoples in India also, the various taxes of the central and state, they are having an impact. And even when the oil price came down, our government didn't bring down the price. And even when it is now going up now, but the situation has come so much that it will be a break even, or means it will have a greater impact on the people. And the government has rightly decided that let us reduce some taxes, and they are also expecting the state government will reduce the VAT on that, and the prices have come down, as you rightly said, to keep it below 100 rupees or so. But situation is not going to be eased easily now. throughout world, that as you rightly said, the oil as well as the natural gas, then now the various shortages in terms of the your automobile for chip, as well as the fertilizer also is in shortage. Even in India, fertilizer, DAP fertilizer is in shortage, and we are not able to provide it to the agriculture for the current crop. So the situation, the commodity price boom has really resulted in a lot of impact on the cost of raw material, for particularly at the MSME. The large corporate, because of these deleveraging and all, I see that just today that they continue to do very well as per the survey done by the corporate earnings. But the 35 to 40% increase in raw material has affected them. But they are making up that in the interest cost. But currently, a few of them also have started passing on the cost to the consumer. There will be a lag effect. So the consumers are also being affected by the increase in prices of all these various things. And electricity, as you rightly said, the coal had hardly 3-4 days of reserve for electricity consumption, even though it has been asserted in because imported coal has gone up very high. And due to the effect of rain in Indonesia and all, the production is not keeping with the pace of the requirement. So overall, electricity power consumption has gone up, whereas the supply of the coal for electricity manufacturers are not being made easily available. The other side is now, instead of oil going up, people have started using the natural gas in terms of other metal and other manufacturing. That has again increased the cost. So overall, sir, that what you said, the way forward is that the Reserve Bank will now look at either maybe reversing the accommodative stance, as well as they slowly reduce the liquidity available, and maybe by next year, or maybe when the economy has already moved in terms of the growth, they may start increasing the interest rate. And they are just looking at the US Fed also, when they will start increasing the interest rate. And once that is done, because in India has got another difficulty, that the equity market is in a boom. Now, this is also due to heavy liquidity flowing to the equity market. Now, foreign institutional investors, even the domestic individual retail investor, when they are not getting the negative interest rate on their traditional fixed deposit and other product, they have started moving into the equity market. Now, the moment interest rates gets increased in US and other countries, the money from here by the portfolio investors are likely to move out, because if the inflation is not controlled, because the inflation adjusted return will not be higher for them here, and there it may be better. So that risk is there. But even India today also has got 640 billion US dollars. And recently the rupee has also nearly reaching up to 75. So overall, the inflation and the price control is the priority of the regulator, whereas the supply side constraints are to be corrected. And as you rightly said, the transportation or railway movement and all that will have to be done, and also the warehouses, storage capacity, and those who are doing black marketing or hoarding and all that, they have to be curbed, and which government is fully aware. And I am sure that with the combined action of the center and the Reserve Bank of India and the states, the whole idea of controlling the inflation will start taking action, and that also will result in some increase in the interest rate, which is inevitable. So this is as on today, sir, that as you rightly said, that MSME, I am really finding that they are one side, they were given so much debt by the under the emergency credit guarantee scheme. The other side, the raw material cost has gone up. Their cost of restarting the operation also, and paying the wages to the employees and all, that is also high. So overall, their profit margin is squeezed. And in that situation, are they able to generate cash flows to meet this enhanced debt somewhere even 20% of the existing limit, 30% or even 40%. So ideally, because we have somebody from the MSME ministry also, there that fund for funds, as well as the what you call subordinate debt for MSME, which have a growth opportunities, and equity related scheme will have to be promoted, so that the MSME situation in this period can be eased, and that we need MSME because they contribute more than 40 to 50% of the GDP and around 50% of the exports. So that is all as on first now. I thought I will stop now here, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Narendra, for giving your very, very forthright views. And what Dr. Narendra says, although he made very clear, but only a few things I would like to mention, highlight what he has said. First thing, he says that RBI is taking lots of interest, and they have put 12 lakhs crores rupees out of 28 lakhs crore rupees of the Atmanirbhar Bharat. The business people will get the liquidity, and the ease of business will be there. But he says that everything, what the government is also trying their best, even the RBI is trying their best, but because of the increase of the raw materials, because of the less demand, as well as the increase of the raw material, the wages are increasing, the profit margins of corporates, especially the MSMEs, have squeezed. He says the big corporates are earning, but the MSMEs are suffering. And because of the global condition, about the oil, he has mentioned that how which was about 20 to 27 dollar a barrel, it has increased, it has reached up to $84 a barrel now, and even in USA it's about 81 something per barrel. And so all these things factors, because India's 85% import is oil, and if India is depending on oil, and if they are and now the figures which have come, that after the lockdown is eased and the economy has rebound, at that time every consumption of oil, gas, and or electricity, coal, it has increased drastically. Even it has increased of the pre-COVID era. So the
So
the effect on the economy is too much. And according to him, the government should come out with some schemes for MSMEs, either equity link or some other schemes, so that, because MSME, according to Dr. Narendra, is contributing almost 50% of the GDP, as well as almost 45 to 50% the exports. So MSME is a very important sector in India, and we have to see that we must give them the leverage, so that at least the price rise can be controlled. Thank you very much, Dr. Narendra, for giving your very, very strong but forthright views and the true picture, because you being a banker, you know ins and outs how the economy and what are the inflation conditions and how we can go way forward. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Dr. Santosh Kumar Patnaik. Dr. Santosh Kumar Patnaik is the former managing director, Indian Railway Finance Corporation. Dr. Patnaik is a strong visionary, multidisciplined management professional with over 3 decades of rich and varied experience across government departments and public sector enterprises of India. He belongs to the 1989 batch of Indian Railways Account Service. Dr. Patnaik completed his master's in applied geology from Indian Institute of Technology, IIT ISM, in 1985. He did master's in public management from Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, in 2005. He did doctor in philosophy, PhD in management from Birla Institute of Technology, Mesra, Ranchi, in 2019. Apart from holding key positions in Indian Railways from 1989 to 2013, Dr. Patnaik has the distinctions of holding key management positions in the state and central public sector enterprises for nearly a decade, both on deputation and on absorption. After taking voluntary retirement from Indian Railways in 2013, Dr. Patnaik joined Heavy Engineering Corporation as Director Finance 2013 to 2017, and then as Managing Director of Indian Railway Finance Corporation from 2017 to 2018. For his exemplary work in office automation and computerization, Dr. Patnaik was decorated with the prestigious Railway Minister's Award in 1999. In his last assignment as Managing Director IRFC in 2017, Dr. Patnaik achieved an unique milestone by taking the lead to raise $500 million for the Indian Railways at a competitive price through issue of climate bond certificates, green bonds in the overseas market, which incidentally is the first of its kind for the railway transportation sector in an emerging economy like India. Right now, he is pursuing his own ideas and passion for institution building and academics. Welcome, Dr. Patnaik on our show. Dr. Patnaik, you have heard Dr. Narendra, and he has given all the details how the inflation is increasing, the reasons of inflation increasing, the role of RBI, the role of government, and but he still wants that more proactive role should be there from the government, so then price rise can be controlled, because he says even now whatsoever actions the government or RBI is taking, it is not going to ease the inflation so easily, because we are not touching the, in spite of all the best efforts, the 4% in thing in which the RBI wants very much, that it should not be more than 4%, but it is roaming around 5 or 5.8 or 6% or more. So we would like to know, because you being a man of finance and you have worked with the railways and the public sector, and you know the conditions, how the budgeting and how the things can be controlled. We would like to know your views on price rise, the way forward. Dr. Santosh Kumar Patnaik, please.
Very good morning, and thank you, Mr. Goel, for giving me this opportunity to be one of the co-panelists. I'm quite glad that I'm sitting with two more co-panelists, where Dr. Narendra has already expressed his views on the price rise and the different measures to be taken by the government to contain that. And Mrs. Hariharan, she is going to speak after me. So since Dr. Narendra has already covered the important aspects from a banker's perspective, let me go with the common man's perspective to understand the reasons for the price rise and wherewithals with the government to contain the inflation. Okay, let me start with a small anecdote how this price rise is affecting the common man's common man's pocket. Means the other day on 1st of November, I have gone with my daughter to a nearby South Indian restaurant, and we ordered for 2 dosas. Well, the waiter took some time to serve me the first dosa, and the second dosa was, of course, served a little late. And when the bill was given to me, I was surprised to find the cost of one dosa is different from the other dosa. It means the latter dosa cost, he has added some 10 rupees more to the existing 40 rupees. I was totally taken aback, and I called this waiter to ask him the reason why you have put two different prices for the dosa when the quality of dosa, the content is same. No, to my amusement, he's give me a very such a reply which made me laugh for some time. He says, "Sir, when I had taken out the first dosa from the kitchen, we were consuming with the old cylinder. It's a commercial cylinder, of course, the restaurants which you use. And the second dosa, of course, you have to wait for some more time. I'm really sorry for that. But that has to come with that was cooked with the new cylinder. And as you know, 1st of November, the price of the cooking gas has gone up by 266 rupees per one cylinder, 19 kilo cylinder. So it's obvious that my management has added more cost to the new dosa." So this is that anecdote which is moving around in the world, in the India all over, that this price rise has become a real panacea for the common man all over the country. If you look at the price rise during last couple of years to 3 years, ever since this COVID pandemic situation has come, it has taken a bite in the recent year, 2020 and 2021. 2019, even though there were pandemic dislocations and supply side disruptions, but then due to the constraints on the purchasing power of the common man, the price rise was not felt that much. But 2020, when the economy slightly started opening and the second wave of corona also came into picture, but still then the price rise was uncontrolled. So the very fact that there is a price rise denotes to the situation, the pandemic dislocation situation, where there is obviously the supply side disruptions. Now let's try to analyze what may be the reasons for the inflation in the country, which has been happening for last so many years. Inflation is a very normal process in the economy. Whether it was the UPA government or whether it is the NDA government, the inflation is always there. But the moot point is that whether it is remaining under control or it is going uncontrolled. Now, whenever it is remaining out of control and it affects the poor man's pocket, then there is a lot of chaos, there's a lot of concern all over the country. Now, the normal reasons for the inflation in a common economy is the demand side, which may happen due to the increase in money supply or due to the government deficit financing by the government or increase in the government expenditure. Before the pandemic, the demand side inflation was very much there. But the new situation, the pandemic dislocation, has created a supply side disruptions. And because of that, the supply side, supply side disruptions leading to the inflation normally come from three different sources. One is the inadequacy of agriculture and industrial growth, which has, of course, happened during the COVID pandemic time. A rise in administrative price that government is judiciously trying to manage the whole situation. And third being the rise in import prices. And next, the fourth reason may be the rising taxes. Well, out of these four supply side disruptions, in my own assessment, the rise in the import prices is contributing majorly to the price rise in the recent days. Now, let's look at the indicators of the price change. India has been adopting the wholesale price index for quite some time, ever since the independence. Recently, means just before the end of the UPA government, at the start of the BJP government, when Raghuraman Rajan was the RBI governor, he introduced the new CPI as a price indicator for inflation. And 2014 onwards, the economists have been harping more on the CPI than the WPI to assess the price inflation situation. Now, if you look at this CPI, there are almost like 448 items in the rural basket and 460 items on the urban basket category. The major being the food items. Now, food and beverages constituting the major part of this CPI, it's obvious that if there is a disruption in the agricultural production, there is bound to be a price rise. Now, looking at the cost push inflation, which India is undergoing right now, majorly due to the supply chain disruptions, this situation can only be controlled by taking some short-term measures, which the government has been taking from time to time. Now, look at the inflation figure during last year, which was 2020, it was hovering around 10% plus. Now, of course, it has been contained in the recent months. And going by the RBI limit of 2 to 6% limit, in the recent months in 2021, the inflation is very much under control. But the recent surge in the prices in the petroleum and petroleum products due to the international price hike in the crude oil has really affected more on the economy, to be particularly for the inflationary economy. And because of this rise in the oil prices, and India being a net importer of oil, as you say, 80%, India imports almost like 85% of the petroleum oil from outside the country, and then almost like 20%, India, it constitutes around 20% of the total imports value. So this being the situation, there is hardly any way for the government but to have certain control on the import policy for the crude oils as well as the other items like the edible oils. Edible oil is one of the major items which also contributes more to the inflation. Now, let's look at the measures to control the inflation from government's perspective. The government reviews the price situation very regularly, and it has, of course, taken a number of measures from time to time to stabilize the prices of food items. If you see in the wake of the rising of the prices of pulse, onions, and potatoes, the government has taken steps to improve the availability of those commodities and make them available to the consumers at the affordable price. Now, what are the short-term measures government has taken so far, and what all measures it is there in its kitty to contain the inflation? Now, if you look at the onion price rise, sometime in the later part of 2021, government has banned the exports of ban on the export of onions then. Then the second step which government took at that point of time to prevent the hoarding, and they started imposing the stock limit on onions under the Essential Commodities Act. That remained for some time, say from October 20 to say December 20. Then the third step government which took successfully also to restrict the inflationary trend is by putting a restriction on the imports, facilitating imports at integrated checkposts, issuances of new license for imports, and then reducing the import duties, which Dr. Narendra has already sounded. So these measures, of course, have resulted the imports of the union, tur dal and masoor dal in the country during the 2020 period, and then the prices got stabilized. So apart from these short-term measures, government is also looking forward to take some long-term measures. But overall situation, if you look for the government, ever since the NDA government has come into power, their main focus is being to contain the inflation, and they have successfully done it from 2014 to till the start of the pandemic in 2019. But 2019 onwards, the situation has gone out of control for the government, because the normal contractionary policy, which the monetary policy, which RBI can bring into picture, when there is a demand side, demand pull inflation, the same could not be done, because obviously it's not a demand pull inflation, it's a cost push inflation, as I have already sounded. This cost push inflation, the monetary policy, contractionary monetary policy will not work properly well. And you may have seen that for the last 8 times, the RBI repo rate has remained almost like constant at 4% level. And the reverse repo rate has also not changed much, and it has remained somewhere around 3.8%. So this being the situation where RBI doesn't have much of leverage to work with the monetary policy, the government has to go from the fiscal measures or the other sort of measures, as I have rightly told you. The fiscal measures the government is unable to take, because if you go for a tight fiscal policy and you increase the taxes and other things, it will have a different impact on the growth. So the only way out for the government at this stage is to judiciously use the short-term measures and also activate the long-term measures. For example, like say the other commodities which are contributing to the price rise, from the agriculture point of view, it is the fertilizers, irrigation, post-harvest technology, storage facilities. So all these things need to be given a proper thought by the government policymakers. In fact, they have been doing that. And this impact will come only over a longer period of time. Then apart from that, the system also needs to be developed to reduce the wastages, efficient management, and then also ensure timely release of the stock materials, whether it is agricultural stock or the manufacturing stock. And third, the government needs to harp on an import policy which has to be consistent, and it needs to be monitored in such a way that the policy paradigm doesn't confuse the consumers, or say for that matter, the farmers. Now, when you go on tweaking with the import policy too much, for example, in the, if I say the edible oils, government imports a lot of edible oils, but to what extent the import should be there and to what extent that domestic production should be there should be a proper balance. If that is not decided properly at the government policy making level, then it's going to create a lot of confusion at the farmers level, because farmers will only go for the produce which will give them better price. If you are not having a control of the import policy, and that will certainly going to create a lot of confusion at the farmers level. So the increased dependence of imports of edible oils poses a lot of risks in the fluctuations in the import prices, and imports impacting production, and then also it affects the domestic edible oil market. So in my own assessment, the government has to come up with a policy measure where it should be a mix of short-term and long-term measures to arrest the inflation. And if at all, the flexible inflation targeting framework, which has been, which has come into picture ever since this India government has come into power, in the 2016 exactly it has come, it should happen in such a way that the 2 to 6% target, which the RBI has put for the inflation, is properly monitored on a month-to-month level with the price indicator like CPI. Now, there is one more thing which I would like to emphasize on this CPI indicator. The moot question is whether the CPI indicator, which now the Indian government is following, is properly factored with the different type of commodities or not. Now, you must have seen a lot of e-marketing has come into picture right now. And the whole trend of consumption of foods have also changed accordingly for the Indian consumers. So the CPI also, in my own opinion, it needs to be revised, and the basket of the item of commodities there in the basket also needs to be revised. And possibly this will give a good fillip to the CPI, and RBI can have a better control over monitoring the inflation to keep it within the 2 to 6% level. As the RBI has already targeted for next 5 years an inflation level less than 5%, even 4%. the bomb, and with this COVID situation slowly going away, the economy opening, there is a big challenge for the government to maintain the growth rate of say around say 9 to 10%. At the same time, contain the inflation below the level of 5 to 4%. It's definitely a big challenge for the government, but I'm sure with the type of policy measures which the government has initiated recently, and the recent indication being the tweaking on the excise duty, reducing the excise duty by 5 rupees for petrol and 10 rupees for the diesel. It's just an indication that the government is trying to work out on different models to contain the inflation. So let's always try to remain positive that the inflationary economy, which has really been bothersome in the recent days, is going to be contained very much with a proper policy formulation and implementation at the government level. So with this, let me come to my end of my talk.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Santosh Kumar Patnaik, for giving your views. I will not highlight many things because he has already explained everything. I will just say one thing, that according to Dr. Patnaik, the government of India should take short-term as well as long-term physical controls or the decisions which are going to control the inflation, because according to him, the control of inflation is required. Otherwise, it will be a difficult time because of in the way the inflation is going, the way the crude oil prices are going up, the way the farmers are not getting the sufficient profit because of the import policy, which the government is not yet come out with a clear-cut policy, because they have to and they have to take an emergency steps whenever the prices goes up of a particular commodity. They immediately allow the import, so the prices goes down. Once the prices goes down, the farmer feels that if I will put if I'm going to have this product produce, I will not going to get that much money. So according to him, the policy should be short term and long term. In both the things, one government should come out with a clear-cut policies, and they should not and no shortcut thing should be done. But Dr. Patnaik is quite positive. He says with the efforts the government and RBI is doing, the way forward is quite positive, and let's hope that the inflation will be controlled, the price rise will not be there. Thank you very much, Dr. Patnaik, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Miss Vinita Hariharan. Miss Vinita Hariharan is the national level public policy expert. She is the Chief of Program, Ministry of MSME, Government of India. Miss Vinita has had an illustrious academic journey and an exemplary professional and public life. An alumnus of the prestigious School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, she worked for a decade in leading private and public sectors of the country. At this juncture, driven by the aim of donning the hat of a decision maker from an implementer, she pursued her mid-career master's in public administration sorry, from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy, National University of Singapore, on a scholarship from the Singapore government. This proved to be a game changer as she gained wide international perspective in policy making. Post this, she has been with various multilateral and bilateral agencies with the Government of India, where she designed national policies and led the implementation of several flagship programs of Government of India in the domains of rural, urban, and livelihood. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Urban Mission, formalization of micro enterprises being some of the key flagship programs designed by her. She is currently with the Ministry of MSME as Chief of Programs, handling externally aided missions. Ms. Vinita is a public speaker and a thought leader in diverse issues of nation building. She is on the board of studies of leading global institutions and a mentor to social foundations that work towards empowering women and the girl child. Ms. Vinita was recently given the Women of Excellence Award from the Indian Achievers Forum for her outstanding contributions to the field despite all hurdles. Welcome, Ms. Vinita Hariharan on our show. Ms. Vinita Hariharan, you have heard what Dr. M. Narendra as well as what Dr. Santosh Kumar Patnaik has mentioned in their talk, and they are very, very clear. They says that the RBI is trying their best, government is trying their best to control the inflation and to bring down to 4%. But because of the many factors which are out of control, even of the government, like COVID and the crude price, international crude price, the inflation is not coming to that level, and it is above 4% always. And that's why the price rise is there. Now, what they are very clear that if some policies will be made, like Dr. Narendra wants the policies, especially for MSME, and he rather indicated that because you are representing MSME, and you know the conditions, how the policies are. According to him, some equity link or some policies which will give boost to MSME, because they are 50% of the GDP and the export oriented units, as well as what Dr. Patnaik says, that we should have a short-term and long-term policy, physical policy, as well as we must have some import policies which will not impact drastically to our agriculture sector. So all these things, we know that for talking, it's a very nice thing for everyone, for us and everyone. But to take a decision and keeping so many factors in mind is not that easy, whether it's government or the RBI. We all, but the program is to way forward. We want that, so that those suggestions which are coming from the experts like Dr. Narendra, Dr. Patnaik, definitely values because of their expertise, their experiences of so many years in public life, as well as on those very prominent posts. We would like to know your views on price rise, the way forward. Miss Vinita Hariharan, please.
Namaskar, Lal Goel ji. It's really a pleasure to be on your show again and to share the panel with esteemed experts like Narendra ji and Dr. Santosh. And Dr. Santosh is also an alumni from my school, and it's a great pride to share the panel with you. Thank you so much. So as has already been explained by the panelists earlier, Narendra ji and Dr. Santosh has explained in very clear terms what is the concept of inflation and how does inflation arise, and what is the current framework under which inflation is actually going slightly out of control. But I think we are getting the reins and we are trying to pull it under the framework soon. So as has been explained already, I think the global supply chains have been disrupted over the last 2 years, and entire the world and life itself was disrupted the last 2 years. We were all under lockdowns for so many months and such long periods. Therefore, supply chains have been heavily disrupted, and which is what gave rise to the entire supply constraint globally. So therefore, our export imports got impacted, like how it was explained earlier. And because exports and imports got impacted, it had an impact on the prices. And that, of course, was also the reason for the fuel price increase also. Apart from the fact that there is a cartel oil producing country cartel, which actually controls the price in such a way that it doesn't go below a certain level, even if the situation demands, they try to control it at a certain level. Therefore, we are always subject to that kind of regime, the global regime, as far as the fuel original crude oil price is concerned. So, and since we are heavily dependent on oil from outside, that is the base point always. Today, it's almost $84 a barrel, so which is actually contributing to a large percentage of the high petrol price that is there today, apart from, of course, taxes at the central and the state level, which is almost 50% of the cost of petrol is taxes, and the remaining 50% coming from the base crude oil price and other prices, commissions to to dealers, etc. So contributing maybe say 25% of the total cost, but since it's a percentage on the original cost, it has a great impact. Therefore, that's one way forward in which all states fall in line and reduce their VAT commensurate with the reduction in excise duty. And of course, the final solution in terms of the fuel price hike is to come under the GST regime, which is a contentious issue. States are not agreeing. Therefore, Centre has taken the olive branch and reduced the excise duties as a first step. But I think eventually we should all get into the GST framework. And so there would be uniform petrol price across the country. And also, there are calculations to prove that if it comes under GST, there is almost a 45% reduction in prices in petrol. So that, so much so for the petrol price hike. And because we have to stock a fuel price, because that's what is contributing to the inflation to a large extent. Because high fuel prices means high cost of transport and therefore the high cost of the vegetables and food produce that is being transported to the markets. So that's how we can control the fuel prices going forward. And of course, also focusing on our domestic production. Now, that is something which this government has been very aggressive about, right from its, the day it took over on being Atmanirbhar and, promoting the concepts like vocal for local and, improving the produce at the local level, localized levels. And even globally, there is this concept of local economic development, which is about promoting economic development in and around a particular local body. As a smaller administrative unit as a local body should be able to trigger economic development around their, within their particular domain area. Maybe say, 10, 15 kilometers around a particular urban or rural local body, there needs to be a thriving economy. So which is what some missions like I've worked on earlier, like the Chama Prasad Mukherjee Urban Mission was focusing on encouraging economic activities within a core urban cluster. It was called a rural cluster, wherein we were trying to promote economic growth centers in rural areas. In a population of about 25 to 50,000, we were trying to give subsidies for incentivizing local economic development, say it's agri-producing or milk production or whatever the local economy facilitates. We were trying to give subsidies for that. So that's a very important concept which this government is also very aggressive about. They are improving localized production and improving the local economy so that our dependence on global supply chain is reduced to that extent. And as I mentioned about oil also, domestic exploration of oil is also something which is totally untapped in our country. So we need to really improve the strength of the oil producing companies like ONGC and other, and also, invite now with the, the disinvestment going strong, we would hope that we would have foreign expertise also coming in to improve our exploration capacities for fuel. So I would say that I would not dwell into the other aspects which has been so well explained by the earlier panelists and the macroeconomic reasons for the inflation, which they are much better equipped to explain that. But as far as my experience is concerned with the government programs and how we could actually go forward, I think local economic development, improve local strength in production of crude oil, as well as in production of other, agricultural produce, which the government's policies are going in the right direction. As Dr. Patnaik also mentioned about edible oils and pulses, which is, we are heavily dependent on imports of these two products, which is actually also contributing to a large extent to the inflation. And another aspect about food inflation is this, we have gone towards, dependence on high value food items like beyond cereals and all that. We are also looking at high value products like organic food and protein rich products, and for which our capacity, domestic production capacity, needs to be enhanced. So that is again another aspect in the food processing sector which we need to focus on. So apart from that, of course, the coal crunch is also an important, the coal shortage that was there. It's also contributing to a certain extent to the inflation, which is again because of the lockdowns and the shutdown due to COVID and the lack of workers in the mines, which is what actually contributed to the temporary shortage of coal. But still, I think the way forward, like the government is emphasizing on use of renewable energy. Now, that is something which is extremely good, because in the way our government is so aggressive about renewable energy and tapping energy from the sun and the wind, I think that is extremely the right way to go forward. Because that is something which is a perennial source of energy. And if we improve our capacities for production of this renewable energy, I think that will go a long way in making our country self-reliant as far as energy sources is concerned. So I think that's again the right way to go. But again, I think we need to expedite our capacities for facilitating the use of electric cars and facilitating the use of hybrid powered cars, by, of course, as you all know very well, improving the stations of refuel recharging stations, and helping, and also reducing the prices of these cars and automobiles for the common man, because still it's out of purview for a common man. A small car costs around 20 lakhs today, electric powered cars. So I think that's not affordable for many middle class people. So I think that's something, because that will come with economies of scale. So for which we need to improve our production capacities. So I think this is what I would like to say in short. And of course, inflation targeting regime is a very tightrope walk, like Dr. Santosh just mentioned. We look at various aspects, the exports, the imports, the local production, then the benefit for the farmers. And as far as the farmers is concerned about agricultural output, I think we've done pretty well during the COVID in terms of improving our agricultural output. And the 3 farm laws, which many states have actually implemented, although there are symbolic riots or protests, but still many states have quietly amended their laws and they've started using the ENAM portal. And I think that's a very good way of improving the capacity for the farmers to link with the markets, so that they don't really need to depend so much on exports. They can cater to the domestic producers and domestic consumers through the digital portals. But again, the last mile, that's another important aspect which the government has to really focus on, is to improve the last mile implementation of the schemes. So because that's another reason for inflation, is there's a lot of money in the market and in the with the government also, in terms of the schemes and the big budget schemes. We announced the Atmanirbhar package, 3 lakh crore, and then recently also the budget of India itself is around it's a huge 27 lakh crore. So I think all of this, now the spending has to happen, and there has to be last mile implementation, last mile infrastructure, provision, so that this money is spent. Only then would the inflation also, that will also have a huge impact on bringing the inflation within the targeted regime of 2 to 6%. So I think that's a very important area which the government really needs to further strengthen. I would feel, being very self-critical, that we need to really improve our last mile implementation of programs. So that's it. Yeah, that's it from me, Goelji.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Vinita Hariharan, for giving your views. And you have given the views from the MSME or the government side. And what Ms. Hariharan said, although she has explained everything, I will just say one thing. Government is trying their best, but because of the cartel in the oil sector, but this cartel was Ms. Hariharan from the very beginning. But yes, now after the crisis which has happened to this cartel, when the price has gone down below $25 a barrel, they have decided to do something, and now they have joined themselves, and that's why one of the reasons that the cost is going up. Although according to her, according to Ms. Hariharan, the government is trying their best, and the way forward, they have reduced the excise duties, and for that, even the states have reduced the VAT, and that's why the rate have reduced. But she says that until unless the petroleum products will not come under the GST, it's not possible to reduce further so drastically, because many states, or I don't know how many states, but many states are not agreeing for the GST. If they will, according to her, it will reduce 40-45% of the cost of the petrol or diesel. So almost the petrol or diesel will be available for about 60 rupees, which is really going to control the inflation, control the price rise, and that is one of the factor. And she has given many other benefits and or the schemes which government is implementing. But only her thing is that the last mile, the person in the last place, is not getting those schemes which they are creating the schemes, and that is the one of the reason the price rise is there. But according to her, the way forward, the government is trying their best, and it's quite she is quite hopeful that government and the RBI may bring between 2 to 6% target of the inflation price. Thank you very much, Ms. Vinita Hariharan, for giving your views. Now my question goes to Dr. Naren. Dr. Naren, although I ask this question very frequently, again I am asking you, being a banking person and knows the finance very well. See, the government of India, what they have done, they have given the benefits or for the packages to the industry, whether MSME package or to the big corporates, they have given, but they have not given the direct transfers. They have given, but that was not sufficient to the public at large, unlike UK, unlike USA. And the condition is there now that UK economy is booming, USA economy is booming, even the COVID has just passed, and because people have the money, direct money, and they have a purchase power. In India, what happened? The money has gone to MSME sector. They took the money, whatsoever they wanted to take. They manufactured the things, but there was no demand, and was the no demand, so they have to reduce the prices. They reduce the prices, their profit margins have gone down. They could not reduce the prices as they wanted. The profit margins have gone down. Secondly, they could not produce the things. Like today, the report came that during this Diwali season, automobile industry was booming. Demand is too high, but there is no supply. And six months booking of automobile. So don't you think the government policy should be to give direct money to the public at large instead of giving to the industry? Ultimately, it would have come to the industry. What do you say about this, Dr. Narendra?
No, that is quite a lot of countries had a direct benefit transfer, or what you call cash transfers, thereby utilizing much of their fiscal deficit. And even maybe they thought that the fiscal deficit at a time when the situation is very bad, utilizing it and ensuring that the consumption and demand is kept at a level, so that other aspect of the industrial production and all that can keep pace. That was the policy in some of the countries they have followed. But in India, that for the vulnerable section, or the people who are below the poverty line, or the poor farmers, the government has resorted such transfer. In fact, like for Narega, 1,10,000 crores over and above the estimated earlier maybe 65,000. They spent 1,10,000 crores. Similarly, there were a cash transfer of 1,70,000 crores. Then there were a transfer of wheat, rice, dal, and all. More than 80 crores of people got the benefit, and that was extended even up to recently, and must be still there also. So that and they utilized the excess what you call production which they were holding in the FCI, Food Corporation, so that the people could have. And the farmers are already being given every quarter 6,000, or what you call full year around 6,000 rupees. And that transfer also took place during that period. Now, other than that, there are quite a lot of state government and central government, other like fertilizer subsidy or agriculture subsidy, or other related benefits, like women, they will give subsidy. Then, of course, India also supplied free electricity and natural, the gas, LPG gas for such people. And today, their utilization of gas has become better in terms of the carbon emission also. So that all have been done, and the government took some of the medium and long-term steps, like opening up the mining to the private sector. Similarly, agriculture reforms, labor reforms. Then they also opened up the defense to the public. And as Madam has said, the most of the measures were Atmanirbhar Bharat, and such of the around 1,000 items, I think, instead of depending on imports, why not to promote Indian industry, and Indian product could be branded internationally. Similarly, the PLI scheme was brought with the 1,94,000 crores of subsidy. And there were also more than 7,000 projects of 111 lakh of infrastructure, and each year they would be spending around maybe 20 lakh crores. So that all results in a lot of employment also. Okay. So there are efforts, but if you say, in spite of that, now you see that the Indian economy really bounced back. Now, had they got into already over and above that, they corrected some of the earlier accounting thing, and reversed some of the entries from the national savings where they have taken loan, or some of the items which were earlier off-site balance sheet were brought to the inside the balance sheet, and thereby boldly they reached 9.8% of the fiscal deficit, with the plan that this year it will be 6.8, and by 2025-26 also it will be 4.5. And their borrowing has been domestic borrowing 90% which an average should not go beyond 60-70%. So borrowing both the central and center 20 lakh crore was a very much higher borrowing in a way that it will also result in that much money not made available to the private sector. But government also made capex more, 5,54,000 crores this year. So Lal Goel ji, that India have more than 130 crores and around 30% of the people are poverty. And it is not such a easy task when we cannot compare India with the Europe or smaller country like Hong Kong, where the money could be made available out of the surplus. But India has a fiscal deficit. So we should make the ecosystem in a way that you rightly said, the corporates were given tax benefits and MSMEs were given that under the emergency credit scheme, as well as some of the sectors they got. That came handy for them to.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Narendra. I have to stop because the paucity of time. But you have made it very clear. Now my question goes to Dr. Patnaik. Dr. Patnaik, don't you think that this excise reduction of 5 rupees and 10 rupees is a panic reaction, which the government, after losing some of the key seats in this by polls, and this is not a long-term planning, and this is not going to control the inflation, because the way the international crude price is increasing, the fear is that within no time, in a month or two, again the price will regain the same level which was before this reduction. What you say about this, Dr. Patnaik? Please be brief. Unmute, please.
Mr. Goel, you have rightly sounded your concern about the short-term measures which are being taken to contain the inflation, and one being this reduction in excise duty for the petrol and the diesel. This is going to work for some time, and as you have seen, some of the states have implemented reducing the rate of the VAT, but this is not going to work on a long-term measure. Basically, we know it's a short-term measure. And the crude oil prices, as the panelists have already sounded, is going to go more and more. And maybe that in 2022, it will reach across the level of $100 a barrel. And this particular policy, short-term policy measure, is not going to work in the long term. And what Ms. Hariharan has said, India should go for a sustainable development of their economy by harping on the more of renewable resources than going for this fuel-based economy, the current fuel-based economy. And that's the only way out of the long-term perspective. But short-term, as you rightly say, this is going to work for some time.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Patnaik. Now, Ms. Hariharan, what Dr. Patnaik has said and you already said about the renewable energy, and our Honorable Prime Minister has also spoken in the climate summit about the renewable energy. What, in a short, in 1 minute's time, what planning you have, what you have made the plan for the thrust for the renewable energy, because India is still require lots of renewable energy to reach that target of 50%. What do you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the planning is in terms of actually having policy measures in place to increase the use of renewable energy in terms of, actually using solar energy in various homes. So it should be brought into the building bylaws, I feel, just like rainwater harvesting. Maybe a portion of the energy of the house consumption should come from solar energy. That is one way of increasing the thrust, and also giving impetus to private sector players who have capacity to deliver on renewable energy. I think these two steps are the way forward as far as renewable energy is concerned.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Vinita Hariharan. So viewers, you have seen today the price rise, which is concerned with everyone, whether it's a rich or poor or farmer or anyone. But what expert says that the price rise is because of many reasons, and the prime reason is the oil, and which is controlled by a cartel, and the cartel has increased the prices, although the demand is not that high at the one time, but they are reducing the production, so the price is going up. But government is trying their best. They have reduced the import duty on edible oil. They have recently cut the excise duty on petrol and diesel, and they are now thrust is on the renewable energy, because if we will have renewable energy, we have alternate energy with us, then definitely we will not be depending mainly on the oil, and thus our inflation is always above the estimated values. So government is trying, but we as a civil society, we must also try our best. At least we should not waste those energy, whether it is a petrol or diesel or electricity. If we will control, if then definitely we can control the price rise can also come, and that is a way forward for everyone. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, as well as was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor to bring to you everyday new topic on media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Tomorrow, the topic is budget schools, challenges and solutions. And our panelists are Dr. Rukhsana Hassan is a renowned psychologist, trainer, coach, motivational speaker, special educator for early childhood education and development. Lieutenant Colonel J. Roque, retired, is the Vice President of Aram Educational and Welfare Trust, Palakkad, Kerala. Dr. Bala Subramani is joining from Kuwait, and Miss Archana Kumar is the educator at TM Hinduja National Sarvodaya High School and Junior College, Mumbai. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Dr. M. Narendra. Thank you very much, Dr. Santosh Kumar Patnaik. And thank you very much, Ms. Vinita Hariharan, for giving and enlightening all of us the efforts which government is doing and which are the factors why the price rise is there. And I'm sure all our viewers today are quite enlightened, and that the government is not sitting idle. They are trying their best, but there are some factors, certain factors where the government can't do help. But if we all will decide, we can also control the price rise. Thank you very much. And
Thank
thanks for
you,
watching
Goel
our show.
ji.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure.